There's a name that's been whispered in private halls of power for over 3 centuries, and you've never heard it. Not in your history books. Not in documentaries. Not even in the forbidden forums you think are fringe. Bellamy. The Bellamy family. They were kings without crowns, executioners without blood on their hands, and the architects of a psychological prison you still live inside. You weren't meant to know this name, because the moment you do, you start seeing through the veil. The illusions lose power. You begin remembering things your soul buried just to survive. But let's start here. A remote estate in the French Pyrenees. Lightning strikes a yew tree in a storm that lasted 7 nights. When it split, they found something sealed in iron beneath the roots. No one speaks about what it was, only what happened after. The eldest son, Thaddeus Bellamy, went silent for 33 days. Then began writing. Hundreds of pages in a language no one recognized. Pages that have been locked away in private vaults ever since. The Bellamys didn't rise through war or wealth. They rose through knowledge. The kind that corrodes empires and turns men into ghosts. They advised monarchs in secret, vanished rebellions before they began, and controlled entire regions through what the church once called the whisper doctrine. You've felt its effects, the unexplained dread before you make a bold move, the instant hesitation when you could have spoken the truth, but didn't. That's not fear, that's programming. And the Bellamys helped build it. Some say they never died, that the bloodline continued, not through name but through method, through institutions, through symbols. Look closely, that triangle with the eye, not Egyptian. Bellamy. The phrase order through silence, Bellamy. Even the psychiatric term pathological doubt, coined after a Bellamy consultation with the French Academy in 1812. They've rewritten how we define sanity, how we define reality, and now their story begins to surface. But understand this, once you hear it, you can't unhear it. The descent has begun. You clicked on this video, not by accident. You were drawn here because something inside you already remembers. Stay, listen, and begin to see what was always hidden. Thaddeus Bellamy wasn't a scholar. He wasn't a mystic. He was something older, something far more dangerous. His family claimed nobility, but even the French aristocracy kept their distance. There were whispers about his birth, that his mother screamed for 3 days before delivering him in a trance, that her eyes rolled white and her voice came out in Latin, though she'd never learned it. When Thaddeus disappeared into the yew forest for 33 days, they thought him lost. But he returned different, eyes darker, voice slower, and he carried with him a manuscript, bound in red leather, impossibly weathered, but newly written. The ink bled through 7 layers of parchment. It became known as the Manuscript of Echoes. It wasn't written in any human language. Scholars who examined it went mad. One carved his own tongue out. Another vanished after ranting that the spaces between letters were feeding. The Vatican tried to seize it twice, both times followed by the unexplained deaths of everyone involved. But here's the truth: no one admits the manuscript wasn't meant to be read. It was meant to be heard. Thaddeus would read it aloud, in a voice barely above a whisper. Listeners described the sensation as losing time, as if hours passed in seconds. Some wept, some screamed, and many remembered things they had no way of knowing, details from their ancestors' lives, visions of ancient rituals, and memories from before they were born. It was a key, not to power but to control. Because once you heard it, you could be programmed. Thaddeus didn't just influence people. He installed beliefs into their nervous systems. Ministers obeyed him without understanding why. Generals changed strategies after his visits. And a young Napoleon, before his first campaign, reportedly spent 3 nights at Bellamy Hall, waking each dawn with blood at his ears and an empty gaze. Do you understand what this means? The Bellamys didn't seize power. They rewrote the definitions of power, and they embedded their doctrines in religion, psychology, and government, using language as the weapon. Every time you doubt your own intuition, hear your own voice telling you to wait, obey, hold back, that's not you. That's a seed they planted. This is not just history. It's architecture, and you're still living inside it. There was no official name for what Thaddeus Bellamy created. No textbook, no school, no disciples in robes, only whispers. That's how the technique worked, quietly, invisibly, inside the folds of the mind. But eventually a term emerged in private archives and redacted intelligence briefings, the whisper doctrine. It began with sound, not words. Frequencies. Low vibrations spoken just beneath conscious hearing. A Bellamy agent could sit in a room and never speak above a hush, yet by the end of the conversation, the target would confess secrets, question his own memories, and accept new beliefs as if he'd come up with them himself. It wasn't magic. It was structure. The human psyche is not a fortress. It's a labyrinth of habits, reactions, vulnerabilities. What Thaddeus discovered, and what his descendants perfected, was a language that bypassed logic and morality altogether, and spoke directly to the survival brain. They found ways to trigger obedience, shame, compliance, not through force, but suggestion. A single phrase, whispered in the right moment, could rewrite identity. Delay your wrath. Think of the greater good. You are not ready yet? How many times have you heard those phrases? In church? In school? From your father? From the mirror? That's not advice. That's programming. And here's what makes it worse. The whisper doctrine was never used to inspire greatness. It was only used to neutralize threat. Courage was rebranded as aggression. Individualism became selfishness. And the instinct to fight back was pathologized as mental illness. By 1890, this doctrine had already infected 5 nations. The British Empire used it in colonial re-education. The early American psychiatric institutions mimicked its cadence in treatment. And later, in the 1950s, MK Ultra didn't invent mind control. They reverse-engineered the Bellamy technique. When you wonder why so many men today feel hollow, passive, unsure, you're not seeing weakness. You're seeing precision. Generations of silence, coded shame, and psychological isolation. They taught you that real power is dangerous. That staying quiet makes you noble. That serving others without question is virtuous. Refined lies, engineered lies. And once you see them, once you hear them with the correct ears, everything changes. That is what's happening to you right now. You are not being entertained. You are being deprogrammed. There is a document almost no one alive today has seen. Not in full. It's called the Blood Ledger. Bound in iron, lined in human skin. The original is said to be buried beneath the catacombs of the Bellamy estate, encased in salt, bone, and scripture. It's not a journal, it's a ledger. Of names, transactions, oaths, and blood. You need to understand something. The Bellamys didn't just manipulate minds. They bound bloodlines. They made deals, not with governments, but with families, lineages, generations of loyalty in exchange for power, protection, or escape from ruin. These were not casual agreements. They were blood-bound, sealed with sacrifice, often with the life of a firstborn or a sibling. And once written, there was no escape. The blood ledger contains names you know: Rothschild, Astor, Harriman, de Medici, entire dynasties. And on the other side of the deal, debt, obedience, permanent placement in the structure of power, not at the top but close enough to taste it and never walk away. One entry in the ledger reads, October 6, 1774, 2 sons returned in coffins, a third given to the house. In return, fortune protected from the fire. That same year, a great fire nearly destroyed Bordeaux. Every home on that street burned, except one. Coincidence? There are no coincidences in Bellamy history, only agreements. The blood ledger became the true map of influence. It determined who could rise, who would fall, and who would be forgotten, erased entirely from records as if they never existed. You've never heard of families like Albrecht, Vaunier, or House de Stadel, yet they controlled fleets, kingdoms, entire economies. But they defaulted, failed to uphold their terms, and they were erased, systematically. You want to understand why certain names never go away, why the same families seem to hover near the throne of every empire, every media conglomerate, every global bank. Because they paid, and they still pay. Even now, there are whispers, credible ones, that certain CEOs, tech giants, even presidents have signed into the ledger without even knowing. It's not just blood anymore. It's biometric data. DNA. Contracts buried in shell corporations but tethered to rights that never died. And here's the haunting part: many of us are descended from names inside the ledger. Not the powerful ones. The sacrificed ones. You wonder why your family can never break free. Now you know. It's not just history, it's inheritance. Beneath the Bellamy estate, 5 levels below the earth, there is a chamber no historian will write about. No blueprints include it. And those who've entered either disappeared or returned changed. Not insane, emptied, hollow-eyed, silent. They called it the resonant engine. It was not a machine in the way we understand it. No wires, no steam. But it moved, it hummed, it breathed in cycles. Built sometime in the late 1700s, possibly earlier, the resonant engine was designed not to do, but to emit. It pulsed with tones at specific frequencies. Tones that bypassed the ear and went directly into the skull. A whisper that never needed to be heard out loud. This was the Bellamy's final refinement of the whisper doctrine. Not person to person, but person to population. It was tested first on prisoners, then villages, then cities. Bordeaux, Lisbon, Prague. Waves of apathy would sweep in, followed by mass compliance. Revolts extinguished themselves. Debts were paid without question. Husbands turned on wives for treason they couldn't name. The machine's power, nonverbal suggestion. It implanted ideas, and more importantly, doubt. Doubt is the true key. A confident man is dangerous, he builds. He resists. But a man who doubts will wait, will comply, will hesitate just long enough for the noose to slip over his neck. That's what the engine created. Men who hesitate. And we are still living in its echo. In 1947, the chamber was reportedly dismantled by Allied forces, but not destroyed. Parts of it were quietly transported to London, others to Langley, and the rest disappeared. But frequencies don't need proximity, they need resonance. And today, the whispers have evolved. They come through screens, through networks, through tones in the back of your favorite songs and alerts on your phone. The resonance remains. Ever wonder why you wake up with anxiety but can't name the source? Why a sudden, violent idea flashes in your mind, uninvited, like it doesn't belong to you? It doesn't. You are not weak. You are not broken. You are targeted. And now you know. This isn't about the Bellamys anymore. It's about what they left behind. What's still running and what's still feeding. Comment the phrase, "The doubt was installed." The doubt was installed, below, twice. To remember. To reject. To reclaim. The village of Mornice, hidden deep in the French countryside, never appears on modern maps. No GPS, no postal code. But it exists, barely. What remains of it? In the 1830s, the Bellamys acquired the entire village overnight. Every home, every stone. No record of purchase, just transfer. Residents were moved out or disappeared. Within months, construction began. Not up, down. A subterranean complex beneath the earth. And inside it mirrors. Hundreds, thousands. Each handcrafted, framed in iron, treated with chemicals that have no name in chemistry books. They called them sentinels. These weren't mirrors in the way you know them. They didn't just reflect. They recorded. They remembered. Stand in front of one, and it wouldn't show you now. It would show you yesterday. Or 10 years ago. Or sometimes, something that never happened, but still felt true. You're thinking, surveillance tech? That's nothing new. Wrong. This wasn't about watching. This was about binding. Every man who looked into a Mornas mirror left a part of himself behind. A thought, a weakness, a fear. The mirror didn't just see it. It kept it, stored it, archived it like a soul tax. And when you looked again, it fed it back to you. Multiplied. Self-doubt, regret, hesitation. A loop. That's how control works. Not through chains, through reflections, through echo. The mirrors created an infinite hall of psychological recursion. The Bellamys didn't need prisons. Men carried the prison inside themselves. When institutions today tell you to self-reflect, examine your biases, question your instincts, they're not teaching growth. They're reinforcing the loop. Because what if you're not seeing yourself in the mirror? What if you're seeing the program? Reports say the Mornas mirrors were dismantled after World War I. Most were lost. But 6 remain, traded among private collectors, sometimes displayed in obscure art exhibits. Unlabeled, untouched. Because those who look too long stop sleeping. Start hearing their name whispered from behind them. Some go missing. No trace. As if the mirror pulled them back in. Your own mirror, in your room, your phone screen at 300 a.m. Ever stare too long and feel like something is staring back? That's not imagination. That's contact. Because the mirrors never broke. They just moved. And the next time you question who you really are, ask yourself, is that you thinking? Or something that learned your face long ago? You've heard the phrase, shadow government. You've read about secret societies. But what if I told you those are distractions, decoys, sleight of hand for the initiated? Because the real architects of control don't gather in basements or boardrooms. They don't hold meetings. They hold rituals. Enter the Black Veil Society, the institutional offspring of the Bellamy bloodline. Founded in 1861, never officially recognized, and yet you'll find its fingerprints across every major transition of power in the last 160 years. Their creed? Govern through consensus, conceal through tradition, command through archetype. What does that mean? It means the society doesn't issue orders, it shapes context, and the context makes obedience feel normal. The veil is not one group. It is a framework. Judges, bishops, psychiatrists, professors, military brass, all selected, inducted, and masked. Not physically, psychologically. They operate with dual identity, one public, one ritual, and their rituals are not metaphor. Every law passed, every social shift, is preceded by a sacred assembly of veiled convergence where members recite Bellamy passages, chant in dead languages, and bind intentions to symbols. Symbols that are later embedded in media, curriculum, legislation. Think that's theatrical. So did the U.S. senator who exposed them in 1958. He shot himself in the head a week later. Twice. These rituals aren't about religion. They're about reprogramming the archetypal field, inserting fear into the collective unconscious. That's why you feel exhausted by the news. Why every institution feels hollow. Why truth sounds strange and lies sound reasonable. That's not politics. That's liturgy. And every society built on Bellamy bones has its altar. Schools with sacred bells. Courts with invocation language. Mental hospitals with ritualistic scripts disguised as intake procedures. You're safe here. This will help you heal. Everything is going to be all right? No, it won't, because healing was never the goal. The Black Veil Society doesn't want submission. They want internalization. When a man polices himself, questions his own instincts, they win. And you? You become a vessel, an echo, an agent of your own subjugation. Look around. Do the people you trust speak in their own voice? Or is it liturgy? Next time a leader, a therapist, a teacher tells you what's best for you, ask, did they choose that language? Or did the Bellamy script write it for them? The difference is everything. Not all control is imposed. The most effective kind is subtractive. The Bellamys knew this. The Black Veil perfected it. They understood a brutal truth. If you want to destroy a people, you don't take away their lives. You take away their stories. Welcome to the Erasure Protocol. It began slowly. An academic omission here, a vanished manuscript there. But over decades, it became a full-spectrum operation. And its purpose was clear: to remove memory from the collective mind. Because what you can't remember, you can't resist. Entire civilizations rebranded as myths. Practices labeled pagan, primitive, insane, revolts that almost succeeded, vanished. Thinkers who spoke too clearly, discredited, silenced, forgotten. Even the term conspiracy theory, coined, weaponized, and distributed not to defend truth but to bury it, a psychological trigger. Mention something real and watch people laugh. As if programmed. That's the Erasure at work. They didn't burn every book. They rewrote the index. They didn't ban ideas. They mislabeled them. Entire lineages of resistance were quietly inverted. The warriors made into madmen. The prophets into pariahs. The protectors into predators. And in their place, false idols, controlled icons, puppets handed to the masses so we'd forget what actual sovereignty looks like. And yes, the Bellamys were involved at every level. Behind the early encyclopedists. Behind the Paris salons. Behind the Age of Reason itself. A cruel irony. Because reason without memory is obedience. They hollowed the past so they could reconstruct the present. That's why modern man feels disoriented. Cut off, no roots. No deep ancestry. He may have a family name, a flag, a favorite history podcast, but no living memory. Because it was taken. The protocol doesn't just hide facts. It rewires instinct. You see the signs every day, an urge to question, crushed by sudden fatigue. A flash of intuition, drowned by self-ridicule. A moment of clarity, snuffed out by the inner voice that says, "Don't go there." That voice is not you, it's them. Erasure isn't an event. It's a condition. And the moment you recognize it, truly feel it, you are faced with a choice. Do you cling to the comfort of your curated illusion? Or do you rip the pages out, one by one, and begin again? With your own hand, your own blood, your own story. Because history is not lost. It's trapped. And it's waiting for you to steal it back. By now, you might think the Bellamy family is a story locked in dusty archives. Distant, disconnected. But that's the final deception. Their legacy isn't just history. It's living. Because the Bellamys mastered something darker than influence or wealth. They mastered inheritance. Not of fortune, but of psychological chains passed down like a virus through generations. Blood is thicker than water, yes. But it's also thicker than memory. Your ancestors may never have known the name Bellamy. They might have been peasants, soldiers, merchants, forgotten men on forgotten streets. But the Bellamy imprint runs deeper than name or class. It's a genetic script etched into your very cells, a predisposition to doubt yourself just when courage is needed, to question your worth when strength could change everything, to hesitate when action calls. This isn't mythology. It's epigenetics and trauma encoded in your DNA. And the Bellamys understood this long before modern science put words to it. That's why they targeted families, why blood sacrifices and the blood ledger existed, not merely as symbolic acts, but as ways to rewrite heredity, to create lineages trapped in invisible prisons. Ask yourself, where does your fear come from? Why do certain patterns repeat in your life, no matter how hard you fight? Why does success always feel like a dream slipping through your fingers? These are not coincidences. You're living the aftermath of their design. But here's the crucial part. The Bellamy legacy is a challenge, not a sentence. Because the same blood that carries doubt can carry awakening. The same chains that bind can be broken. You weren't born to repeat the script. You were born to rewrite it. But it requires seeing yourself clearly, beyond the lies, beyond the fear, beyond the conditioned obedience. It requires embracing the darkness, not to be consumed by it, but to wield it. The Bellamy family didn't just shape history. They forged a crucible. And now, that crucible is you. The question is no longer who they are, but who you will become. Because once you see the machinery, once you feel the code in your veins, there is no turning back. You are no longer a victim. You are the heir, and the heir holds the power to either be consumed or to burn the whole system down. Choose wisely, because this knowledge is dangerous, and it will change you. Forever. You've walked deeper than most dare. You've heard the whispers they meant to keep buried. You've looked into the mirrors they hoped would trap you. Now, you stand at a crossroads, the place where knowledge becomes power or paralysis. The Bellamy legacy is not a curse without a key. It's a challenge that demands mastery. Mastery over your own mind, mastery over your own fear, mastery over the subtle voices, inside and out, that want you to doubt your worth, your instincts, your very humanity. To break free from their control, you must become the hunter of shadows, not the hunted. This path is not easy. It will demand relentless vigilance. You will face moments when the old programming surges back, whispering obedience, compliance, silence. When your own bloodline fights you. When doubt claws at your throat like a beast that knows it will lose its prey. But that moment, the moment you confront your own shadow, is the moment you are reborn. Begin by reclaiming your story. Not the sanitized version spoon-fed to you, but the raw, brutal truth that pulses beneath the surface. Gather your ancestors' voices, the silenced, the erased, the betrayed. Let their strength ignite your will. Next, train your mind like a weapon. Reject the half-truths embedded in culture, media, even friendship. Question everything. And when your instincts shout, don't suppress them. Listen. Trust. Act. Remember, power isn't given, it's taken. Not by force alone, but by unyielding discipline and awareness. Finally, build your own covenant, not with elites or secret societies, but with yourself. A promise to protect your autonomy, your integrity, your vision, to stand when others fall, to speak when silence is easier, to lead when chaos screams. You are not alone in this descent. Many walk this path, but few reach the summit, and that's the point. Because true awakening isn't for everyone. It's for those who understand that knowledge is dangerous, not just because others want to keep it hidden, but because it demands transformation. So I ask you, now will you be the echo of the Bellamy script? Or will you become the author of your own? The choice is yours. But remember this, once you step fully into this truth, there is no going back. You are changed. You are awakened. You are dangerous. And the world will never see you the same way again.